If you're watching this channel, you probably enjoy 3D printing, but do you enjoy it enough to play a 3D printing video game? Today, we look at the good, the bad, and the ugly for 3D PrintMaster Simulator. I'm in the privileged position that this is my full-time job, running this channel, and I get to do a lot of 3D printing. Another one of my hobbies is gaming, and previously I've talked about my sim rig setup, but I also like to play other games on the go. Last year I was contacted by a developer who was working on a game about 3D print simulation. Since then it's been fully released, so in this video we're going to test it out, with the aim of finding out whether it's fun and whether you should give it a try. The game in question is called 3D PrintMaster Simulator Printer. It's on Steam and it's been out since the 5th of December 2023. In Australian money, it's $14.50, which equates to just under $10 US. Based on the teaser video, this game does seem pretty novel, allowing the player full-blown management of a 3D printer farm, including building the printers, managing parts and materials, and then receiving, accepting and processing orders, just like you might if you were running your own print farm. However, if we look at reviews, there was only 34 and they were mixed, so I was interested to see what my opinion would be. Firstly, let's talk about how I'm playing this game. I'm a busy person and as such I prefer to do my gaming on the go, where I can play in small segments as time permits. So I'm playing on a ROG Ally handheld, but that means I don't have a keyboard and mouse. And the first thing I realized about this game was that it didn't support gamepad control. Because of this, the first time I played the game, I got stuck in the menu without an escape key, meaning I had to force quit the game just to get out of it. So before I could really play anything, I needed to set up a custom control profile to emulate keyboard and mouse. This worked fairly well, but I'd really like to see the game have native gamepad support. So what you'll see in this video is a mix of gamepad as well as mouse and keyboard, where I'm playing on my editing computer. Let's see how the game plays by starting in career mode. There's no tutorial to speak of, just this buying list in the corner, but when I exited the game and then came back in, it was completely missing, and I'm not gonna lie, that made my life difficult. When the game starts, you're in an office with a laptop, but I quickly ventured out of this room into a larger studio with a bunch of tools and some instructions for packaging, painting, things like that. One thing missing from this room was any type of 3D printer, so I headed back to the computer. By entering the computer, we get our main management interface, and we can see at the moment we have no 3D printers, but we do have access to the email tab, which has a couple of orders waiting for us to fulfill. We have an orders tab, currently empty, and we have a store tab with 4 different categories. I remembered that shopping list that had now disappeared and decided I would just buy one of every part to begin. Upon exiting the office, I went to the door to find all of my packages had arrived. The left mouse button acts as grab, so you hover over an object, hold down the mouse, and then you can move it around the room. Right-click zooms in and out, and our 2 other buttons are E and Q on the keyboard, with E being used in this case to quickly unbox all of our printer items. I grabbed the largest one and took it over the bench to start my assembly. Again, there's no instructions here, so I went back to collect the next piece. Its location was highlighted yellow, and as I moved over the top, it snapped into position. Some bolts were exposed on the edge, and hovering the cursor over them told me I needed a wrench. So I ventured over to another workbench, picked up the wrench with the drag button and took it back, waved it over the printer, but nothing happened. But there was an instruction in the corner telling me to press E to take the tool. I could then come back to the printer, hover over the bolt and left click to put it in. I tried to put the wrench down on the table, putting the cursor above and then pressing drop, but it always seems to fall down to the ground. That's very frustrating and seems a little bit silly. I proceeded to go back and get the next part. This was labelled platform and looked like the heated bed. To install it, all I had to do was hover it over the printer, and eventually once I found the right distance to stand, it popped into place. I decided I wanted to rotate the printer to face the back, but this was quite cumbersome. But then I noticed in the corner that holding Q or E would rotate the printer. So I picked it up and held down one of the buttons to find that it rotated in quite a strange direction, clipping through the middle of the table. I placed it down on its side, discovered a bolt that I had missed, fastened it with the wrench, dropped the wrench on the floor as is tradition, and proceeded to install the rest of the parts, some of them needing fasteners, other ones snapping straight into position. At this point, despite the lack of a tutorial, I was enjoying myself despite some janky controls. For instance, like using the screwdriver here, which is clearly not working on the screw I'm hovering over. Once I installed the final component, the X motor, as far as I could tell my printer was finished, so I hurried back into the computer room, only to find on the printer status screen I still had no 3D printer. So I headed back to the store and remembered that I needed some plastic for it to run, ordering that immediately. After installing that from across the room, I noticed my printer had shifted and now had this cube icon on the middle of it. And sure enough, on the printers tab, I had my first 3D printer listed, along with the amount of material and the wear and tear on all of the components. Excitedly, I switched to the email tab and decided to accept a job, deciding to create a bone for Noah because it didn't need any painting. I clicked accept, which switched me automatically to the orders tab. I clicked create and then selected the printer that I wanted the job to be completed on. I went back to the printer and found the job was underway with some interesting sound effects. The animation for the printing was pretty rudimentary, and I was disappointed to see there was no progress on the LCD, but I did enjoy the rip-off Kralty name. A few seconds later, I got a notification telling me that the print was complete. So I picked it up and rushed over to the preparation area and pressed E to package it into a box. It wasn't clear how I was meant to deliver it, so I just left it by the door for now. Let's step up the complexity by accepting an order for a painted item. When I went back into the studio to check the print, I noticed that someone had broken into the room. I don't want to judge a book by its cover, but this person did not look very happy, so I picked up the package, gave it to them, and they vanished into thin air. Back at the printer, the new job appeared to be finished, but it wouldn't let me take it, and this animation was taking its sweet time. When it did finish, I collected it and took it over to the painting area, only to find it was nearly impossible to put it down in the location that was marked. It turns out the key is to approach the desk from the left-hand side where you can actually reach the back of it. Doing so starts a 3-second countdown, and at the end of that, the item will be automatically stuck to your hand. You can then walk over to the boxing area, press E to package it, and then put it near the door, ready to be picked up. I noticed back on the orders tab that the job I had already completed seemed to be stuck, and I needed to click decline to clear it from the list. A lot of new orders came in at this time, so I figured it was time to up my production capacity by adding a second 3D printer. I started in printer kits, but I could only afford the cheapest one of these, and it wasn't clear exactly what I would be buying, so I opted to stay away. Instead, I looked for a bargain in used printers and bought the middle of the range printer for $525. Back in the main room, it was waiting for me at the door, as well as another curious customer. I gave them their box to teleport away, and then carried my printer over to the workbench to inspect it. Immediately it was clear that some parts were not properly put together. It's a used printer, so that makes sense, and it adds to the theme. I retrieved my best screwdriver from the floor and used it to repair the parts of the printer that weren't intact. I then noticed there were some other components that were completely missing, so I headed back to my computer to buy them from the store. And once everything was put together, I had transformed my operation from a single 3D printer to the minimum required to call it a print farm. My new printer looked good, but my old printer was showing some signs of wear and tear. So I purchased an upgrade in the form of a level 5 platform. According to the store page, this would give me a speed increase and that would help my efficiency. I tried to pull off the old platform, but it proved to be impossible. And eventually I worked out that I needed to remove the entire printer off the workbench, and where better than on the floor where all my tools were waiting. I could then take off the old platform, gracefully miss the bench and throw it onto the floor before grabbing the new, bigger, faster platform and installing it. That gave me 2 working and partially upgraded 3D printers, so it was time to make some money. I scrolled through the job list and selected the order that paid a little bit more money than the others. I sent it to my upgraded but second-hand 3D printer, as well as another simpler job to have the 2 going side by side. But print progress, even with the upgrades, was still pretty slow. I decided I would look around the room to entertain myself and actually found something, with some blueprints hidden behind some objects. And it's clear to me from the information on this graphic that the person who made this game does actually 3D print themselves, but apart from that, I couldn't find any reason to go looking for these blueprints. The job list on the computer was filling up regardless, so they seemed to be completely arbitrary. Once the next 2 jobs were done, I painted where necessary and then boxed them up ready for pickup. I stared at the door, keen to see if there was any animation for when the recipients arrived. But this lady just teleported here instantly, and she wasn't exactly great with her manners. So I located the correct box for her and sent her on her way. This gave me some money, but I was still pretty poor, and it was clear this was going to be a real grind, particularly when I would not only need to spend money on more filament, but also replacing components that were wearing down. But the sad thing was, not only did the jobs pay very little money, but none of them seemed to really stand out from another. The thumbnails for each were in different colours, but I didn't need that colour to accept and print the job. In terms of gameplay, the only thing that was different was whether or not they needed painting. But the worst thing of all is that after around half an hour, I had already experienced everything the game had to offer. We have a loop of accepting a random order, starting the job, waiting for it to finish, boxing it up and waiting for it to be picked up. Eventually, printed components wear out and you'll need to order new ones to keep them running. And to undertake that work, you will need to move to the floor, which I have to say does feel a little strange. So what about creative mode? How does that differ? Well, it's exactly the same in every way, except you have a starting budget of $1 million, so you can afford to buy whatever components you want as you build your first printer. Unfortunately, there's no cloud save for Steam, which means when I load it up on another computer, the only option was to start again, rather than being able to load my existing progress. That was annoying, but when I switched back to my handheld, I was shocked to discover that my 3D printers had disappeared. I still had the bank balance that I had accumulated from completing orders, so perhaps I could have put together another new printer to continue, but then I discovered that all of the tools had gone missing, so this would be an impossible task. So that was over 2 hours of gameplay, which was honestly a grind, completely gone in an instant. Unfortunately, this is a game full of strange design choices and errors, such as it being easier to complete work and store tools on the floor, and my customers teleporting instantly into my room. Anyone who runs a real print farm, please let me know in the comments if this is how it works in real life. There's also other annoying issues, like the control changes I made not being saved between sessions, meaning I had to redo them every time I started the game. The sound design is also overly simplistic, and all of your movement is accompanied by these clumsy footsteps. But despite having so many obvious problems and limitations, I still see this game as having potential with the right type of improvements. In its current state, the graphics and the environment you work in are a tick for me. The in-game music is also relaxing and catchy. And apart from fixing the obvious bugs, a simple change in approach would massively improve the experience. Let me compare it to a game I've just finished playing, Dave the Diver. This game, on face value, has a pretty simple premise. You'll spend most of your time diving underwater, hunting for fish and other ingredients. And then at night, you go to your sushi restaurant, select what you want to put on the menu before the restaurant opens, and you have to act as a waiter, serving dishes and drinks to customers. In that respect, it's similar to the game we're covering in this video. We work to complete products that we then sell to customers to make money. But where 3D PrintMaster Simulator is very repetitive, Dave the Diver is not. Firstly, the upgrade system is more structured and are necessary to progress in the game. For instance, if you don't upgrade your weapons, you're going to struggle to defeat enemies that you'll encounter as the game goes on. And if you fail to upgrade your diving equipment, you'll be limited in the areas that you can access while diving, which will also limit story progression and limit the ingredients you can collect. In 3D PrintMaster Simulator, you could go the entire game only with level 1 components. There's simply no real incentive to upgrade further. What would massively improve the game is if the job list had different requirements. For instance, an exotic material, something needed to be printed really fast, or perhaps a harder multi-material product. These jobs would be worth more money, so therefore it makes sense to upgrade your printer so that you can complete them. Another thing Dave the Diver does to break up the gameplay is to include lots of mini games. These can be as simple as pouring tea or perhaps cocktails in the restaurant, but they make for a fun and varied experience. 3D PrintMaster Simulator would benefit from something like this. Imagine you had a clogged nozzle and you had to complete a mini game to repair it. Another great opportunity is a mini game for the painting that varied depending on the colors or the object, or a mini game for the packaging that varied depending on the size and how fragile the object was. In Dave the Diver, you can access any of the management menus anytime you're on land from your mobile phone. However, in 3D PrintMaster Simulator, instead of getting information about the 3D printer in front of me, I have to keep on going back to the room to access the computer. So a management interface you could access anywhere would improve things a lot. The last area where Dave the Diver shines is character. From the inbuilt social media app, tracking your character's achievements in the gameplay, through to the highly entertaining cutscenes you see every time you upgrade a weapon or a dish at the restaurant. All of this makes Dave the Diver so much fun to play, but 3D PrintMaster Simulator doesn't have to go this far. This game already has customers, so why not have a little fun with it? Make some of them difficult, but pay well if you can satisfy them, or other customers that act shady because they want embarrassing items printed. Just anything to add some spark and personality to the game. I think the best way to describe this game is it has potential, but it does need a lot of polish. There's enough management sims around that are really enjoyable, that act as a proof of concept that this could be too, with the right mechanics applied. Hopefully the developer will take on my feedback as well as those who have played the game and left a review on Steam. Let me know what you think about this game down below in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy 3D printing. G'day, it's Michael again. If you liked the video, then please click like. If you want to see more content like this in future, click subscribe and make sure you click on the bell to receive every notification. If you really want to support the channel and see exclusive content, become a patron. Visit my Patreon page. See you next time.